The coffee spilled across the conference table like a dark tide. Vivian Ashford stood so fast her chair scraped against the marble floor. Her eyes, cold as winter glass, fixed on the trembling assistant who had tripped over a cable. "That phone cost more than your entire month's salary." Laughter rippled through the boardroom. 12 executives in expensive suits, enjoying the spectacle of someone else's humiliation. In the corner, a man in a gray janitor's uniform stepped forward. He moved with a quiet certainty that seemed out of place for someone in his position. There was a scar running down his left forearm, faded but visible. His eyes held something deeper than his station suggested. "Let me clean it, ma'am." Vivian turned. Her gaze swept over him like he was furniture. "Touch it again and you're fired." The room fell silent. Every eye turned to the janitor. He looked at her, then at the phone. Without hesitation, he picked it up. "I said—" He placed the phone flat on the glass table and pressed down. Crack. The case shattered. Something small flew out, rolling across the polished surface until it stopped right in front of Vivian's hand. She picked it up, her face drained of color. A military dog tag, engraved with a name she knew better than her own. Captain Grayson Ashford, her father, dead for 10 years. The janitor's voice was low and steady. "Returning it to the right person?" He bent down, collected the broken glass with his bare hands, and walked out of the room as if nothing had happened. Vivian stood frozen, the metal tag burning against her palm. 3 weeks earlier, the apartment in Dorchester was small but clean. Morning light filtered through thin curtains, catching dust motes floating in the air like tiny stars. Callahan Thornwood stood at the stove, flipping pancakes shaped like smiley faces. It was a ritual, every morning without fail. Some things you hold on to when everything else has been taken away. "Daddy!" Ember burst into the kitchen, her curly hair a wild halo around her face. She was 7 years old and carried the weight of wisdom far beyond her years. In her hands, she clutched a piece of paper and a box of crayons. "I finished it! Check my spelling!" Cal wiped his hands on a dish towel and crouched down to her level. On the paper, in careful crooked letters, she had written, "Respect is a quiet language." "Perfect, Ember. I'm proud of you." "Why do you like that sentence so much, Daddy?" He sat on the kitchen floor, pulling her onto his lap. His eyes drifted to a place she couldn't see. "Because someone very special taught it to me. Someone who saved my life when I thought I was going to die." "Like a superhero?" "Better than a superhero. He didn't wear a cape. He just had a brave heart." "Where is he now?" Cal was quiet for a long moment. "He went to heaven, but before he left, he asked me to do something." "What?" "Find his daughter and teach her what he didn't have time to teach." Ember tilted her head, curious. "Did you find her?" "Almost, Princess. Almost." She taped the paper to the corner of her desk, right next to the family photo. Cal, Ember, and a young woman with a warm smile. Her mother, the one who wasn't there anymore. That night after Ember fell asleep, Cal opened the locked drawer beneath his bed. Inside lay the pieces of a decade-long promise, a file on Vivian Ashford, photos, her work schedule, a floor plan of the Ashford Enterprises building, certain areas marked in red, a handwritten letter, yellowed with age, 2 military dog tags, one with his name, one with the name Grayson Ashford. Cal unfolded the letter and read the final lines. "If you survive, find my daughter. Teach her what I couldn't. She already knows how to speak it. She just needs to remember." Signed, Grayson Ashford. He picked up the second dog tag, the one that would change everything. 3 weeks of careful observation had led him to this moment. He had watched Vivian's habits, learned her routines, and he had discovered something unexpected. The phone case she used, a designer brand with a hidden compartment, had been a gift from her father before his final deployment. A custom design meant to hold something precious. But Vivian didn't know about the compartment. She had never opened it. Grayson Ashford had placed his second dog tag there himself, intending to reveal it when he returned home. He never got the chance. Cal had learned this from the old quartermaster who had helped Grayson design the case. A chance meeting at a veterans support group 3 years ago had given him the final piece of the puzzle. Beneath the letter lay a USB drive, 10 years of investigation compressed into a few gigabytes. After his discharge, Cal had used every connection from his military days. Former intelligence officers who owed him favors. Forensic accountants who worked pro bono for veterans. A network of people who believed that justice shouldn't have an expiration date. The emails between Conrad and his offshore accounts. The transfer orders with suspicious timing. The financial records that showed money disappearing into shell companies. It had taken a decade to build a case that would hold up. But Cal was a patient man. He had learned patience in Karbala, waiting under rubble, believing that help would come. Captain Ashford had taught him that some things were worth waiting for. Now, Cal just needed the right moment to break open that phone case. He folded the letter carefully and slipped it into the breast pocket of his jacket. 10 years, Captain. I'm almost there. Ashford Enterprises occupied 40 floors of glass and steel in downtown Boston. The building gleamed like a monument to success, to power, to everything money could buy. Vivian Ashford stood at the window of her corner office, looking down at the city that her father had helped build. She was 32 years old, dressed in a black suit that cost more than most people's rent, her hair pulled back in a severe bun. On her desk, a framed photo of her father lay face down. She reached for it, hesitated, pulled her hand back. Some faces were too painful to look at. A knock at the door. Conrad Blackwell entered without waiting for permission. He was 48, silver-haired, with a politician's smile that never quite reached his eyes. As COO, he was technically her subordinate, but something in his manner suggested he didn't see it that way. Vivian, the Sentinel Park project is 40% over budget. The board is asking questions. That park honors my father's memory. There is no budget limit for his legacy. Of course, Conrad nodded, his voice smooth as oil. I only mention it because the board is watching every decision you make. They want to be sure you're worthy of this position. What exactly do you mean by that? Nothing at all. His smile widened. Just remember, your father trusted me. He wanted me to protect you, to protect the company. He left. Vivian stared at the closed door, her hands gripping the edge of her desk. She knew what Conrad wanted. After her father died, he had been the leading candidate for CEO, but Grayson Ashford's will had named Vivian as his successor. Conrad had been waiting 10 years. He was still waiting for her to fail. The hallway on the 40th floor was empty. Late evening light cast long shadows across the marble. Cal pushed his cleaning cart past the executive offices, the wheels squeaking softly. Through the glass wall of the CEO's office, he could see Vivian sitting alone in the dark. She was holding the photo frame, the one that was always face down, and she was crying. Dad, I don't know if I'm doing this right. Everyone looks at me like I don't belong here, like I'm taking someone else's place. Her voice broke. I miss you. I miss you so much. Cal stood in the doorway, frozen. His chest tightened with a pain he recognized. He remembered Grayson Ashford, the man who had dug through rubble for 40 minutes under enemy fire to pull him free. The man who spoke about his daughter with such pride in his eyes. My daughter is so smart, so strong, but she's stubborn. She thinks being strong means not needing anyone. Vivian looked up and saw him. Her tears vanished instantly, replaced by a mask of ice. What are you doing there? Sorry, ma'am, I'll come back later. Cal turned to leave, but he stopped at the threshold, his back to her. Every father just wants his child to be happy. Not perfect. That's the only thing they hope for. Then he was gone. Vivian sat motionless, the words echoing in the empty room. Her father used to say that every night before she went to sleep when she was a little girl. Who was this man? The lobby of Ashford Enterprises buzzed with activity during lunch hour. Employees rushed past, phones pressed to their ears, coffee cups in hand. Cal received an emergency call. Ember's school was closing early. No one else could pick her up. He had no choice but to bring her to the office. Sit here quietly, princess. Daddy will be done soon. Ember settled into a corner chair, her sketchbook open on her lap. She began to draw. A man in a military uniform, holding a little girl. Above them, the words, "Heroes don't wear capes, they wear courage." Vivian walked through the lobby, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. She had just come from a brutal board meeting. Her mind was elsewhere. But something caught her eye. The drawing. She stopped. "Who are you drawing?" Ember looked up without a trace of shyness. "My daddy. He used to save people. Now he cleans floors, but he's still a hero." "Why do you think that?" "Because heroes aren't people who do big things. Heroes are people who do the right thing when nobody's watching." Vivian felt something crack inside her chest. She crouched down to the child's level. "Who taught you that?" "My daddy. He said someone saved him in a faraway place. That person didn't wear a cape either, but he was a real hero." "Does your daddy know the hero's name?" Ember shook her head. "He just said the hero went to heaven, and Daddy promised to do something for him." Vivian's breath caught. "What's your daddy's name?" "Callahan Thornwood, but everyone calls him Cal." The name hit her like a physical blow. She remembered a file she had read years ago when she was trying to understand her father's final mission. There was a soldier named Callahan Thornwood, the only survivor of his rescue unit that day, the last person her father saved before he died. "Wait here, sweetheart. You're doing a beautiful job." Vivian walked away quickly, her heart pounding. Back in her office, Vivian demanded Cal's complete file. The official HR record was sparse. Name, age, high school education, previous work as a construction worker. Widower with one daughter. Too clean. Too simple. "Find me his military records. Full name Callahan Thornwood. Check the veterans database." An hour later, her assistant returned with a much thicker file. Sergeant Callahan Thornwood, Special Rescue Unit, United States Army. Decorations including the Bronze Star and Purple Heart. Last mission, Karbala, Iraq, 2014. Severely wounded in an IED explosion. Rescued by Captain Grayson Ashford. Status of Captain Ashford, KIA. Killed in action. Vivian's hands trembled as she read. Her father died saving this man, and this man was mopping floors in her company. Why? Conrad Blackwell sat in his mahogany office, fingers steepled beneath his chin. Before him stood Bryce Kellner, head of security, a large man with cold eyes and no questions. "The janitor, Thornwood. She's investigating him." Conrad's eyebrow rose. "Why would she care about a janitor?" "He has some connection to Captain Ashford. I don't know the details yet." Conrad was silent for a long moment. His fingers tapped the desk in a slow rhythm. "Watch him. Find anything we can use." "Use for what?" "To remove him, if necessary." That night, Bryce slipped into the employee locker room. He searched Cal's bag methodically, professionally. He found a handwritten letter, yellowed, fragile, and a military dog tag bearing the name Grayson Ashford. He photographed everything, then put each item back exactly as he found it. "The boss is going to love this." Karbala, Iraq, 2014. The explosion came without warning. One moment, Sergeant Cal Thornwood was leading his rescue team through the rubble of a collapsed building. The next, the world turned to fire and thunder. When he opened his eyes, he was trapped. A concrete slab pinned his lower body. His left leg was broken. Blood ran down his face, blinding him. His radio crackled with static. His team was gone. The evacuation helicopters were leaving. "Thornwood, do you copy? We're pulling out." The voice faded to silence. Cal tried to move. Couldn't. Pain consumed him. He thought of Ember, 4 years old, waiting at home with her mother. She would never know how her father died. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Then a voice cut through the smoke. "Don't give up, Sergeant." A figure emerged from the chaos. Captain Grayson Ashford, commander of the battalion. He should have been on the first helicopter out, but he had come back. "Captain, you need to go." "I don't leave anyone behind." Grayson began digging, his hands tearing at concrete and twisted metal. "You have family?" "Wife and daughter. She's 4. "Good. Think about them. Don't close your eyes." For 40 minutes, Grayson Ashford dug, alone, under enemy fire. Bullets sang past his head. Mortars exploded in the distance. When he finally pulled Cal free, a second evacuation helicopter was descending, but it could only stay for 60 seconds before the enemy closed in. Grayson pressed something cold and metallic into Cal's hand. "Take this. If you survive, find my daughter, Vivian. She's 22, smart, strong." A sad smile crossed his face, but stubborn. "She thinks being strong means not needing anyone. What should I teach her? That I love her, that I'm proud of her, and that she already knows how to live with honor. She just needs to remember." The helicopter pilot screamed through the radio. 30 seconds. Grayson lifted Cal, half carrying, half dragging him toward the aircraft. "Come with me, Captain." Grayson shook his head. His eyes were calm, the eyes of a man who had already made peace with his choice. "Someone has to stay and hold them off. Otherwise, the helicopter can't take off safely." "Captain!" Grayson smiled, the smile of a father thinking of his daughter one last time. "Tell her that her father didn't run. Her father chose to stay." The helicopter door slammed shut. Cal screamed, pounding on the glass, but the aircraft was already rising. Through the window, he watched Grayson Ashford turn his back to the helicopter, raise his weapon, and walk toward the enemy. The last image Cal ever saw of him was a silhouette against fire and smoke, standing tall, standing alone. Cal woke in the darkness of his apartment, drenched in sweat. His hand clutched the dog tag so tightly it left marks in his palm. "I'll keep my promise, Captain, even if it takes forever." The moment had finally arrived. Everything Cal had planned for 10 years led to this. When the dog tag rolled across the conference table and Vivian's face turned white as bone, he knew the first part of his promise was complete. Her hands trembled as she held her father's name in her palm. "That tag, where did you get it?" Cal's voice carried the weight of a decade. "From your father's hand, before he pushed me onto the helicopter, before he turned back to face the enemy alone." The boardroom went silent. No one dared to breathe. In the corner, Conrad stood abruptly. This was the moment to act. "Security! This man just destroyed property and assaulted the CEO. Arrest him!" Bryce rushed in, clamping handcuffs on Cal with practiced efficiency. "Wait," Vivian started. "Vivian, you're in shock." Conrad moved to her side, his voice dripping with false concern. "Let me handle this. This man is clearly a con artist, using fabricated stories to manipulate your emotions." Cal didn't resist. As they dragged him away, he looked at Vivian one last time. "Read the letter in my jacket pocket. It's your father's handwriting." The door closed behind him. Vivian stood in the middle of the boardroom, the dog tag cold in her hand, not knowing who to believe. But there was more to come. Justice for Captain Ashford was only beginning. The security office was cold and sterile. Cal sat handcuffed to a metal chair, watching through the glass partition. Conrad stood beside Bryce, examining the contents of Cal's jacket. "Here it is." Bryce held up the yellowed letter. Conrad read it quickly. His expression darkened. "Burn it." "But sir, if Miss Ashford asks—" "There is no letter, understand? This man is a fraud. He fabricated everything to get close to the CEO. Bryce struck a match. The flame caught the edge of the paper. Cal watched through the glass, helpless, as 10 years of promise turned to ash. The letter, the proof, the last words of Captain Grayson Ashford. Gone. At 2 in the morning, alarms shrieked through the Ashford Enterprises building. The fire suppression system had failed. Backup generators were dead. Emergency protocols weren't responding. The maintenance team was helpless. The equipment was military grade beyond their expertise. The inspection team arrives at 8. If we don't pass, the company faces shutdown. Conrad appeared in Vivian's office, barely concealing his satisfaction. This is a disaster, Vivian. Perhaps you should let me take temporary control. No, she cut him off. The janitor who was arrested, Thornwood. What did his file say about his expertise? Her assistant checked. Special Rescue Unit. Expert in bomb disposal and military emergency systems. Where is he? Still in security holding. We never called the police. Release him. Bring him to the basement. Now. Conrad stepped forward. Vivian, you can't trust that man. I don't know who to trust yet. Her eyes met his, steel against steel. But I know this building is in danger, and he's the only one who can fix it. Cal stood in the basement surrounded by tangled wires and dead circuits, flashlight in his mouth, hands moving with precision born of 1,000 similar situations. Vivian watched from the doorway. Can you fix it? 70% done. He didn't look up. This wasn't an accident. Someone deliberately cut the main power lines and disabled the generators. Someone who knew the system. You're saying sabotage? Someone wanted this building to fail inspection. Someone with access to this basement. Vivian thought of Conrad, the only person besides her with clearance to this level. Cal connected the final circuit. Lights flickered once, twice, then blazed to life. Done. He stood, wiping his hands on his pants. For the first time, Vivian noticed the long scar on his arm, the mark of the explosion that should have killed him. Thank you, her voice was soft. And I'm sorry for the arrest. No need. I understand why you doubted me. The letter you mentioned, where is it? Cal was silent. He looked toward the security office upstairs. Ask Conrad Blackwell. Dawn light filtered into the lobby where Ember sat waiting. Her eyes were red from crying. A babysitter stood nearby, anxious and uncertain. Vivian came down from another sleepless night. She stopped when she saw the little girl. Are you okay? Ember looked up, recognizing her. You're the lady from yesterday, the one who asked about my drawing. Yes. Vivian sat down beside her. Your daddy is downstairs. He's safe. Relief washed over Ember's face. Then she studied Vivian with those two old eyes. You're sad, I can tell. Why do you think that? Because you look like Daddy when he misses Mommy, sad but trying to hide it. Vivian felt her heart crack open a little more. Your Daddy, where is your Mommy now? She went to heaven 3 years ago. Car accident. Ember said it simply, the way children do when they've learned to accept the unacceptable. Daddy says she still watches me every day. I just can't see her. Your daddy's right. Daddy's always right, Ember smiled. He says sometimes grown-ups forget how to listen. They're too busy talking, but the truth whispers. Whispers? Yeah, the truth doesn't shout. It's small and soft. You have to be still to hear it. Tears spilled down Vivian's cheeks. She couldn't stop them. You're so much like your daddy. Everyone says that. Ember tilted her head. Do you have a daddy? I did, but he went to heaven too, a long time ago. Then we're the same. Ember reached out and touched Vivian's hand. Daddy says people who lose their parents early are stronger than others, because they have to learn to love without being held. Vivian wept, really wept, for the first time in 10 years. At 7 in the morning, Vivian reviewed the security footage from the night Cal was arrested. She watched Bryce take something from Cal's jacket, hand it to Conrad. Conrad reading, Bryce striking a match, paper burning. She froze the frame, zoomed in on the burning document. Her father's handwriting. She would recognize it anywhere. No! She ran to the incinerator room, searched through the ashes with bare hands. Her fingers turned black with soot. Finally, she found it. A fragment of paper, edges charred but center intact. My beloved daughter, I am so proud of you. Vivian collapsed to the floor, clutching the fragment to her chest. Her father had written this letter. Cal was telling the truth, and Conrad had destroyed the evidence. But there was more to find. Back in her office, Vivian dug through old company records. Financial reports from when her father was alive. Personnel decisions. Transfer orders. One document made her stop breathing. Dated 1 week before her father's final mission, Conrad Blackwell had signed the order transferring Captain Grayson Ashford to a different unit, an understaffed unit, given the most dangerous assignment. Her father wasn't supposed to be there. Conrad had sent him there. She kept searching, found more. 1 month before the transfer, her father had discovered Conrad embezzling from the company's charitable foundation. He had threatened to report it. Then he was transferred to a mission no one expected him to survive. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Conrad didn't just embezzle money. Conrad had sent her father to die, to silence him. Conrad had murdered her father. The boardroom filled with executives and auditors at 9 in the morning. The inspection team had passed the building. Crisis averted. Conrad stood at the center of the room, radiating confidence. As you can see, thanks to my leadership last night, we've overcome this challenge. I propose the board reconsider the current leadership structure. Sit down, Conrad. Vivian walked through the door. Behind her, 2 FBI agents in dark suits. The room went silent. Vivian, what is this? Conrad's smile flickered. What I should have done 10 years ago. Vivian placed a thick folder on the conference table. Board members, I have evidence that Conrad Blackwell embezzled over $5 million from this company's charitable foundation, and that he deliberately arranged for my father, Captain Grayson Ashford, to be transferred to a fatal mission to prevent him from exposing the theft. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Conrad's face drained of color. This is slander. You have no proof. I do. A voice from the doorway. Cal walked in, holding a USB drive. 10 years ago, I knew something was wrong. Captain Ashford told me before he died that he had discovered corruption in his company. He asked me to investigate. Cal handed the drive to the FBI agent. On this drive are copies of every email between Conrad and his offshore accounts, money transfers, the order sending Captain Ashford to his death. Everything matches the timeline of when Captain Ashford discovered the embezzlement. You've been watching me for 10 years? Conrad backed away, his composure crumbling. I made 2 promises to Captain Ashford. Cal's eyes locked onto Conrad's. First, to teach his daughter what he couldn't. Second, to find out who sent him to die. He paused. I've kept both promises. The FBI agent stepped forward, handcuffs ready. Conrad Blackwell, you are under arrest for embezzlement and conspiracy related to the death of Captain Grayson Ashford. Conrad was handcuffed in the middle of the boardroom. As they led him away, he shouted over his shoulder, You'll regret this. The company will collapse without me. Vivian stood tall, unmoved. This company was built on honor, something you never understood. The door closed. Conrad was gone. The room was silent. Then one board member stood and began to clap. Slowly. Another joined. Then another. Not loud, not celebratory, just respectful, genuine. The rooftop of Ashford Enterprises glowed in the light of the setting sun. The Boston skyline stretched out like a painting of golden shadow. Vivian stood alone at the railing, holding the burned fragment of her father's letter and his dog tag. Cal approached, stopping a few feet away. Are you okay? I don't know. She didn't turn around. For 10 years, I tried to make my father proud by building an empire, by being strong, by not needing anyone. That's not what he wanted. I know. Her voice broke. Now I know. She turned to face him. For the first time, she really saw him. Not the janitor, not the secret keeper, just a man. You waited 10 years just to keep a promise to my father? He saved my life. He gave me the chance to watch my daughter grow up. It was the least I could do. What you did wasn't the least. It was everything. Vivian stepped closer. What did my father ask you to teach me? That you already knew how to live with honor. You just forgot. I did forget. You remembered. Cal smiled softly. Ember told me you cried when you talked to her. Your father would have been happy to know that. Why? Because he once said his daughter was so strong, but she forgot that crying is also strength. He wanted you to know you don't have to carry everything alone. Tears streamed down Vivian's face. Can you stay? Not for the company, not for the promise. She hesitated. For me, for Ember, because I think we're all looking for something. Cal looked at her. For the first time since losing his wife 3 years ago, he felt warmth spreading through his chest. Ember would be very happy. And you? He reached out and gently wiped the tear from her cheek. So would I. 6 months later, Sentinel Park opened on a perfect autumn morning. There were no grand statues, no towering monuments, just a simple garden of trees and benches, a place for quiet reflection. Small bronze plaques dotted the pathways. A soldier protected this place. A nurse healed here. A teacher inspired here. A mother loved here. A janitor cared for this place. In the center of the park stood a large framed image. Ember's drawing, enlarged and preserved. 3 hands reaching toward each other. 2 dog tags glowing in the middle. Below, in a child's careful handwriting, heroes don't wear capes, they wear courage. Cal, Vivian, and Ember stood before the drawing. Ember was in the middle, holding both their hands. Daddy, is the park pretty? Beautiful, princess. You did an amazing job. I didn't do it alone. Ember looked up at Vivian. Miss Vivian helped me a lot. Vivian crouched down and brushed a curl from Ember's face. You helped me more than you know, sweetheart. Ember tilted her head, considering something with unusual seriousness. Miss Vivian, can you be my mommy? Cal and Vivian both froze. Their eyes met over the little girl's head. Daddy said family isn't people who are born together. Family is people who choose to stay together. Vivian knelt down and pulled the little girl into her arms. I would love that, Ember, if you'll let me. I'll let you. Ember hugged back tightly. New mommy. Cal watched them, his eyes stinging. He looked up at the sky, where he believed Grayson Ashford was watching. Promise kept, Captain. Vivian stood, one hand holding Ember's, the other reaching for Cal's. My father would have loved this. He would have loved you. Cal smiled. He always believed you'd find your way back. I didn't find my way back. Vivian looked at him, her eyes shining. I found home. Ember tugged at both their hands, pulling them toward a bench near her drawing. Sit here. I want a family picture. A passing stranger happily agreed to help. The 3 of them sat together in the golden autumn light. Cal, Ember, Vivian, smiling, together. Behind them, the largest bronze plaque in the park caught the setting sun. Captain Grayson Ashford, a father who lived with honor, a soldier who chose to stay, a hero who needed no cape. 1 year later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of a house in the suburbs of Boston. Not too big, not too small, just right for 3 people. Ember ran down the stairs, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Mom, Dad, I'm ready for school. Vivian looked up from the kitchen, a smile spreading across her face. It still amazed her, even after a year hearing that word. Mom, did you brush your teeth? Yes. Did you pack your permission slip? Yes. Did you? Mom, I did everything. Ember ran over and hugged her around the waist. Stop worrying. Cal appeared in the doorway, car keys in hand, grinning at the scene. She's got your attention to detail now, you know. You've created a monster. A very organized monster, Vivian laughed. Ember pulled back and looked up at both of them. Today is the anniversary. They grew quiet. The park, Ember continued. It's 1 year today since we opened it, since Grandpa's park became real. Vivian crouched down. You remember that? Of course I remember. Ember's eyes were wise and young at the same time. That's when we became a real family. At Grandpa Grayson's park. Cal knelt beside them both. You want to visit after school? Yes. Ember's face lit up. Can we bring flowers? For Grandpa's plaque? We can bring whatever you want, Princess. Ember threw her arms around both of them, pulling them into a group hug. I love you guys. We love you too, sweetheart, Vivian said, her voice thick. So much, Cal added. So much. That afternoon, the three of them walked through Sentinel Park. The trees had grown taller in a year. The benches were worn smooth by visitors. The bronze plaques had developed a gentle patina that made them look like they had always been there. Ember carried a bouquet of wildflowers, carefully chosen that morning. They stopped at the large plaque. Captain Grayson Ashford's plaque. Ember placed the flowers at its base, arranging them just so. Hi, Grandpa Grayson, she said softly. I'm your granddaughter. You saved my daddy so he could be my daddy. And then he found Mommy Vivian so I could have a mommy again. She paused, thinking, I never met you, but I know you, because Daddy tells me about you, and Mommy does too now. She says you were the bravest person she ever knew. She pulled out a folded paper from her backpack. I drew you a new picture. It's our family. You're in it too, because you're part of us forever, even in heaven. She unfolded the drawing. 4 figures holding hands. Cal, Vivian, Ember in the middle, and above them, watching over them all, a figure in military uniform with angel wings. Daddy says you taught him something important. I'm learning it too. Ember smiled at the plaque. I love you, Grandpa. Thank you for giving us our family. Vivian's hand found Cal's and squeezed tight. For a long moment, no one spoke. The wind rustled through the trees. Birds sang in the distance. The park hummed with the quiet life of autumn. Then Ember looked up at Cal. Daddy, do you think Grandpa can hear me? Cal looked at the plaque, at the name of the man who had given him everything by giving up everything. I know he can, Princess. How do you know? Cal smiled, pulling both his girls close. Because love doesn't need words to be heard. They stayed in the park until sunset. Ember ran between the benches, playing some elaborate game only she understood. Cal and Vivian sat together, watching her, their shoulders touching. Do you ever think about what would have happened? Vivian asked quietly. If you hadn't kept your promise, if you hadn't found me. Sometimes. I would have spent the rest of my life building monuments to my father, never understanding what he really wanted me to learn. And I would have spent the rest of mine carrying guilt, feeling like I owed a debt I could never repay. Oh, Vivian leaned her head against his shoulder. Instead, we found each other. Instead, we became a family. Ember ran over, breathless and laughing. The fireflies are coming out. Can we stay and catch some? Cal looked at Vivian. She smiled. A few more minutes, she said. Then we go home and have hot chocolate. Yes! Ember pumped her fist and ran back to the grass. Home. The word had never meant so much. Cal watched his daughter dancing in the twilight, trying to catch fireflies in her small hands. He felt Vivian's warmth beside him. He thought of Grayson Ashford, wherever he was now, watching over them all. Thank you, he whispered, so soft only the wind could hear. for everything. And somewhere in the gathering dusk, in the flicker of fireflies and the laughter of a child, an answer came, not in words, never in words, in the warmth of presence, in the peace of belonging, in the love that needs no voice to be understood, because some promises don't end when they're kept. They become the beginning of something new. On the smallest plaque in the park, half hidden by a flowering bush, words caught the last light of day. Respect is a quiet language, and love is its loudest whisper. The camera clicks somewhere in the fading light. Another family photo, another memory captured. But the real picture, the one that mattered most, couldn't be held in any frame. It was three people who had lost so much, finding in each other what they thought was gone forever. A father who learned that keeping a promise could lead to unexpected blessings. A mother who discovered that strength isn't about standing alone. A child who understood that families aren't always born. Sometimes they're chosen. And a grandfather watching from somewhere beyond the sky, finally at peace, because his daughter had remembered. And his legacy would live on, not in bronze or stone, but in the quiet moments between heartbeats, in the space where words aren't needed, in the language that only love can speak.